Okay, let's do it.
Okay. What would you like to do first?
Uh, I can do the therapy piece first and then we can
Okay.
swap.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. I don't think the client had a name today, did they? No. So I guess she'll just be Melanie and I'll be Narlene.
Okay.
so, so hi, Melanie. I'm Narlene. I'm one of the nurse practitioners here.
Hi.
And it's very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Today we're going to be getting to know each other. This appointment today will be for us to kind of go over a lot of information to help me better understand what's happening and how best I can help you. So I've been here with the facility for about a year and a half, and I have worked in all sorts of different situations, inpatient hospital, outpatient, and private practice, and with the VA. So, and I specialized in post-traumatic stress disorder and anxiety there at the VA as well. So that's kind of my background. Today we should have about 30 minutes to discuss things and get to know each other a little bit better. Um, so tell me, Melanie, what brings you in today?
Well, we mentioned anxiety, and I've had a lot of anxiety, and maybe you can say depression. I've had a really hard time sleeping. I've been very irritable. I've been yelling at my kids much more than I usually do. Um, I have a really I'm just mad at my husband all the time. I'm up late worrying about things, about getting everything done, and I just feel terrible, and I don't know. I'm failing, and I don't know how to change.
And I hear there's kind of a theme with the irritability and anxiety, but also some sleep issues. So do you feel that the anxiety and frustration are maybe making it hard for you to go to sleep at night?
Well, that's part of it because I do lie in bed and sometimes I just fume that I'm so angry. But part of it is I went back to school. I just started this program at college, and I didn't get to go to college when I was younger because I got married young and we had kids. But now the kids are in school, so I can take some classes. But it's so much harder than I thought it would be. There's so much work. There's all this reading. I mean, it's like every week it's 5 or 6 chapters to read and papers and going to class. And I'm always trying to do that. And there's never a quiet place to study. So sometimes I wait till everybody's asleep and then I study till about 3 in the morning, and I have to get up again to get the kids to school, and I can't sleep because I'm so wound up. But then I get mad because I'm like, why do I have to do all this stuff? When I decided to go to school, we talked about how I couldn't do as much of the childcare and the cleaning, but I'm still doing it. And I don't want to fail at this. I It's really important to me to get this degree, and I don't want to waste money because we don't have a whole lot of money for it. But I just got my first quiz back and I got a 60. So if I keep this up, I'm going to fail. So that keeps me up at night. So it's everything. My mind is just swirling, and then sometimes I just get so mad and irritated, and then I feel just awful. And then some days I just don't want to get out of bed, but I have to force myself because I have to do all these things. And that's it. I just don't want to fail. I mean, I feel like I'm failing at school, I'm failing my family. I just feel like I can't do anything.
Well, I think what you're trying to do is wonderful, and I commend you for trying to go back to school and raise kids and clean a home and have a family. I mean, that is a lot of responsibility, but education is also wonderful, and I think that's great that you're trying to have some more growth within yourself. Um,
Thank you.
Definitely hearing a lot of overwhelming undertones with just so much on your plate. It's kind of like having a full plate and things are starting to overflow off of it,
Yeah.
or having a cup that's overflowing down to the sides. If you were to envision your life being without anxiety and depression and good sleep, what would it look like?
Well, what I thought it would look like, I thought now that the kids are all in school, and my youngest is in all-day kindergarten, so I thought, well, that's so much time. I I only have to go to school for like 2 hours a day, so I drop the kids off, I go to school, and then I come home. And I thought that I could come home, get work done, work on my schoolwork, s the kids come home, start dinner, have family time. I thought I could sleep more than 2 hours a night. I thought I could just fit it in and it would work okay, but it's not working like that. I come home from school and I'm exhausted, and I try to take a nap, but I can't, and I start on one thing, and then I'm worried about something else I have to do, and I never finish anything.
I definitely think going forward, we could talk about some of the things that are triggering the anxiety. We could look a little bit about your fears towards the future and some of maybe fears from the past that have triggered and situations that you may have remembered having anxiety when you were younger that might have created this response, this physical response to every time you have stress. We'll talk a little bit about the future and we'll talk a little bit about the past and also kind of mold those together to see how we can best help you with the present, if that sounds like something you'd like to do. I'd like to know a little bit more about your situation with some other things. So you had mentioned the depression as well. And can you tell me about some of those things that you're feeling?
I just feel like I'm letting everyone down, and I think, well, maybe I'm being selfish in going back to school. I mean, the whole idea, I'm studying to be a paralegal because they make good money and we could use that money. I mean, when the kids get older, when they start, you know, school, even though it's public school, it's expensive.
Mhm.
Um, And I just kind of feel like, well, maybe I'm being a bad mom because I'm focusing on me and not the kids. Maybe I'm being bad wife. And then I think, well, maybe, I don't deserve this. I got married very young, and my parents always said, you're making a big mistake. This is going to ruin your life. So I thought, well, maybe I did ruin my life. And then it's almost like a weight on me that I feel some days like it's just too much and I've made a big mistake, and I just get overwhelmed and I start feeling so terrible. And like I said, I just don't want to get out of bed, but I have to. I mean, if I don't get out of bed, a couple minutes later, there's these little faces looking at me going, Mom, we don't have any cereal. Mom, where's my books? So I have to force myself to get out of bed and help. But then, I think, am I putting so much into my education? I don't have enough for the kids. I don't have enough for my husband. I used to have a social life. I don't have a social life, even with, the kids' friends' families. So, I mean, I just feel like everybody else knows how to do this, and I don't know how to do it.
Do you remember when you were younger, when you talked about your parents kind of telling you that you got married at a young age and it wasn't going to work? You remember any other times that they may have been sayings or something that made you feel that way, that you would fail, that you wouldn't be successful?
Well, I know when I was in school, I wasn't the best student. Like elementary school and high school, I was so much more interested in being social. I got in trouble for talking in class, and I wanted to go out and play with my friends after school. And then in high school, I want to go out with friends and I wanted to date and all. And, you know, they would just say, you've got to get better grades. You're never going to get into a good college. You're never going to get a good career. You're never going to make anything of yourself. And I, you know, met my husband in high school, and we got married like a month after graduation. And then I had my daughter, well, I had my daughter about 6 months after I got married. So, you know, and then we had my two sons right away. And I they just kind of said, well, we knew you weren't going to be the one that was going to be successful. And then, you know, I'm trying to be a good mom, and my mother will say, you know, why are you doing this? Why are you feeding the kids this? You're not doing this enough. So I've just always felt like I haven't been good at anything. Um, Even though I'm trying real hard, my kids are happy. They do well in school. My relationship with my husband's pretty good, but I, there's just always a voice in the back of my head saying, you're doing it wrong. You're not good at this. You're never going to be good enough.
Well, I think, in anybody in your situation or growing up in that situation where someone is consistently telling them that they're not going to be successful, over time, you start to believe it. And that can often carry forward to the present and towards the future. And when you think about if your own children, if you were to tell your child, if they were to come to you and say, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can pass a test, or I don't think that I can go to elementary school or, high school and be successful. We would never tell our children, you're just going to fail. You would want to give them words of encouragement. And so the same applies for yourself. If we don't work on the encouragement piece and belief that you can be successful, there's always going to be this core belief you're just going to fail. And so it's very hard to see the positive when there's just a bunch of negative blocking the way. So definitely working on that piece together will be, I think, a good goal for us and going forward to help you feel that you have the ability. You've gotten into school, you've passed the exams to get accepted into the program, and you're here and you're doing it. So I think just setting up a way that we can build on that confidence every day, so you start to believe that this is a realistic thing that you can succeed in. The other piece of this too I'm hearing is maybe we just need to work on some organizational things and structural, and see what we can list a list of all the things that you're having to do every day that make you feel overwhelmed. And then we can maybe glean from that list and take out things that perhaps we could delegate. You could ask your husband to maybe help with some things and give him tasks and duties. Perhaps even the children, maybe if they could come around and do some of the chores or help with the trash or all these things. If maybe as a family you could sit down and create jobs for everybody and get everyone on board the same ship, so to speak, that could relieve some of your tension and stress, so you could use that time towards learning and being successful in school. And of course, sleep is always an important thing.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
So how do we do this? Because that's an awful lot, and I'm in school now, and I don't want to. All this stuff sounds so good. I would love to have more confidence. I'd love. I mean, I think my kids are old enough. The oldest is 10. I think they're old enough to start doing some chores, but that's part of it too. Is how do I do all this stuff? How do I begin?
Well, I think for us, we could meet initially, if it works for you. We could do some shorter sessions once a week. We could agree to some homework per se, not that you need any more with the already busy load, but this would be more of just quick, simple things that you can do. So perhaps for today, I would say the first thing I would like you to do is to write a list of all the things that you feel need to be accomplished in a day.
Okay.
So things that you're doing, like you said, you're coming home and you're having to do home, the dishes and the trash and maybe doing some laundry. So really getting down an itemized list of things that you feel that have to be accomplished on a daily basis. And then taking that list and picking out the things that you could delegate to your other family members. Or perhaps if you have it in your budget, even outsourcing, so to speak. Perhaps if you can afford a little, someone to come in for an hour and do some cleaning and scrubbing the toilets and, things like that. It depends
That would
on,
be
if that's
great.
possible. Yeah. But I think just kind of writing it down and giving some real credibility to it and seeing it for what it is and then grouping it into different sections, husband, children per each child, what their abilities are, so your 10-year-old probably can't cook a meal but could probably um, pick up the clothes in their room or unload the dishwasher. So
That would be
simple
help.
tasks, yeah. And then that way perhaps we could then work on the delegation piece for this week. So then your goal would be to sit down with your family over dinner. So something that you're not taking extra time for, but that could be the topic of the dinner discussion is, okay, mom needs help. And I've decided that in order to be successful for mom to be in school, I need you guys to all help with me. So, you look at your husband and you say, can you do these things? And then the children, can you do, these group of chores and agree on when it's going to be done. So setting real tangible, real measurable time frame so that you're not feeling, well, I told my husband he needed to do the dishes and it's midnight and they're still not done, so nothing like that. But it would be, okay, by 6 o'clock, this is when needs to be done. So it's really broken down into baby steps. And you may not be able to delegate the whole list entirely this week as everybody kind of slips into their new roles. So perhaps you could delegate one task at a time and see how everybody does for the first week, giving yourself little pieces of time. And each week you could build upon that. Then the following week you add 2 chores, and then so on and so forth. And that would give you a little bit of extra time and wiggle room in your day. And the other piece to that, I think, would be the goal for one of the goals to do this so that not only are we getting better time management for you to be in school and to be successful with all the things that you feel need to be accomplished, but also to carve out some time for yourself. Because it's really important that you're taking care of yourself or you aren't able to take care of anyone else.
Well, isn't I thought that was what I was doing too much because I'm going to school, and I'll be honest, part of it I really like because, okay, this will sound stupid, but I always go there right after dropping off my kids, so I'm there about 15 minutes early. And some of the other girls have invited me to stop and get a coffee at the coffee shop. So we stop and we get a coffee, and I usually get a bagel, and we take that to class, which is not something that I normally would do. So I kind of feel like I'm already doing a lot for me. And I guess I'm a little afraid to give up some things because I know, I always want to have a perfect home. I like everything to look good. I don't like any clutter. The You mentioned the dishwasher and the dishes. I like it to be a certain way. I like my clothes done a certain way because it has to be perfect. So it's kind of scary to me to think like, yeah, my kids probably could put their clothes in the hamper, but are they going to sort them properly? You know, if my husband does a load of laundry, is he going to put the proper amount in? So these changes are they sound good, but they also scare me,
And that's
you know?
understandable because you've been doing them for so long. And
Yeah.
you have a systematic order in the way you like things to be done. And having an unclean or having a dirty house or things not organized the way you want also can increase your stress and anxiety. So I would encourage you to maybe look and see if there's any little leeway that you're willing to part with. So, for instance, um, with children, they often have their own rooms. And
They
so
do.
sometimes, with other clients, I've told them, perhaps inside the child's room, it can be messy as long as you can shut the door.
Oh, I'd have to shut the door. I can't.
Yeah.
Oh,
But in a way that empowers the children to keep responsibility with their own room. So you're teaching the children how to be independent and how to be accountable by allowing them to, clean their own rooms and be responsible for that. But if they don't meet that marker of expectation that you feel comfortable with, then you're maybe meeting them in the middle where you're just saying, okay, today I can just shut the door. And that helps you relax because you're not seeing the room, and you can kind of put it off to maybe another day, maybe on the weekend, where you could sit with the children and help them clean and sort their room. So, you'd have to look at the list and really get down into what you're willing to part with and what you're willing to say, okay, maybe perhaps it's something as simple as yard work. If your husband's doing the yard work, well, you may want the hose put a certain way, but would you be okay with if your husband clumped it on the ground for this week? So, things that you're going to have to ask yourself, is this something that I can delegate, or is this something I really feel that I have to do myself? And if it is still a lot of things that you don't feel you can let go of that delegation piece, then we've got to come back and look at the organization piece and work out a schedule and say, okay, for this amount of time, I'm working on this. And then for this amount of time, I'm doing schoolwork. And this amount of time, I'm going to spend with the family. So you're partitioning off specific rigid time frames, and with the understanding that when that time ends, if the task isn't complete, that is okay. You can go back to another time slot and go back to it. So for an example would be, you're going to do the laundry and you've given yourself an hour to do the laundry. However, it's taken you an hour and a half to fold and organize everything that you like. So you say, okay, well, I've put towards an effort for the laundry an hour and a half or an hour, and it's actually going to take me another half an hour. So where can I glean another half an hour? Okay, well, maybe I'm willing to later on tonight, when I said I was going to do the dishes, I could take that time, ask my husband tonight to do the dishes, and go back and use that piece of time to organize the laundry in the way that I want. So it's a kind of a banking system, a give or take. It's a deposit and then a withdrawal. And your bank is yourself. It's your time bank. But I think it would give you empowerment to feel in control of being able to move the time around, instead of feeling I have to do 10 things at once and I can't begin. And that causes the depression and the anxiety and the overwhelming, because one chore you're doing, you're focusing on another. But this way, if you're piecing it out in real time, you can say, okay, for this moment, I'm going to put all the other things I have to do on the shelf. So if you a mental shelf and you put those things up, they're not going away, but they're just going to be set aside so that you can focus on the task at hand. That may give you some ease to your anxiety. As far as the depression and anxiety go as well, have you ever been on medication before?
no, no.
Would you be
I
interested in doing anything like that to help with some of the symptoms?
I never have. I don't know that much about it. Um, is you always hear about people on this medication, and it makes them like zombies, and I can't do that. Is uh, if there was education that would, or education, medication that would just kind of take the edge off, I would like that, but it's not going to be something that's going to, like, I don't want to not have anxiety, but also just kind of be like that, like a Stepford wife. Is there something that can kind of help, but is not going to just make me a zombie?
There are many different medications that have different kinds of effects. I would recommend for you, if you were interested in it, is an antidepressant. So that would help lift and elevate your mood so that there would be less depression, and one that also at the same time decreases anxiety. So something that I would encourage to be prescribed would be something like Lexapro, also known as escitalopram. It's an antidepressant that's very good on anxiety, doesn't cause sedation, doesn't make you feel like a zombie. It's dosed at 1 pill a day. And I think it would be beneficial initially to kind of help quell some of the, lower some of the anxiety and elevate your mood, and make you feel like you can get up and do these things and not be so tired, and kind of calm some of the anxiety related thoughts and overwhelming features, so that we can then continue to work on meeting each week and working towards the tasks and managing your anxiety and depression. And medication doesn't have to be a long-term thing. I feel that this is very much a situational type of depression and anxiety brought on by the fact that you have just this overflowing plate. But I think it would be a good idea to put some of that on board so that we have more tools in our toolbox. And calming some of those physical symptoms will allow you to be able to focus more on working towards getting things to where they don't feel so overwhelming.
That all sounds good because I mean, I didn't have these problems before I went back to school. Everything was fine. I could sleep, I could manage everything. And it's a little scary to give up some of this stuff, but I understand what you're saying about, my kids do need to start to have responsibility. And I guess I could let go of a little of this perfectionism. I mean, my fear is my house is going to look terrible. My mom's going to walk in and say, I told you you shouldn't go to school. But it, you make it sound like I could do this. You make it sound like if I made a couple of changes, I, I could do this. And do you think I could do this?
I absolutely believe that you can do this. And I think that you're already, just by being here and meeting with me today, you're taking the first step to being successful at all of this. And up until this point, you have managed and multitasked very many things. You've raised children at a young age, you've managed a household and a marriage, and all of these pieces and parts of your life. So I think that anyone in your situation would feel this way. And you've got to recognize that, that it's okay to feel this way. You've got a lot going on, but I absolutely believe working together, we can come up with a plan and help you be successful towards school and managing a family.
That sounds great. I'll be honest, I thought I was wasting my time and I thought this is going to take so much time and it's just going to be one more thing. But I really like talking to you because you make me feel like this isn't as hard as I thought it would be, and you can help me get to where I want to be. So I like this. I want to come back and talk to you more.
That's wonderful. So what we'll do is we'll make a plan to visit initially weekly. We'll
Okay.
do that for the first couple of months to get you kind of through the first quarter of school. And
Okay.
then after that, we can see where we are. And each week, we can discuss however you'd like to go forward with this. If you'd like it to be more of a future-oriented approach where we're looking at how do we make the future realistic with graduation and how do we get from here to there. Or we can look more at some of the things in your past that have kind of triggered this anxiety, and working on the self-esteem and building up, a ability to feel good about the things and choices that you're doing. I think there's lots of room for growth here.
That sounds
Good for
great.
you? Okay, great. Well,
Thank
it was a
you.
pleasure meeting you today. You're welcome. So just before you go, we can consider medications next week. Just give it a thought. You can look into looking up the medications more if you'd like.
I
So
will.
we'll write it down for you, and we can do some searching. I can also print out some handouts about the medications with side effects so that you can take that home to also study. The homework for this week would be going over that list to really breaking down. And if you want, before you implement it, you can bring it back next week and we
Okay.
can work on that together and compartmentalize and see how we can break it apart, the different delegating of the duties to each one in your family.
That
That
sounds
sounds like a good
great.
first step. Okay, good. And so before we go, I have a couple of more questions for you.
Okay.
Wanted to know, with the feelings of depression and anxiety, have there been any thoughts of wanting to hurt yourself or hurt anyone else?
No,
Okay,
no,
good
no,
to
I've never thought of that. I mean, I the only thing I've really thought about doing is staying in bed all day, but I've never thought of hurting myself or anyone. No.
Okay. So if any of these symptoms get to be really bad and starting to feel thoughts of self-harm or wanting to hurt someone else, I want you to reach out and we'll give you the information. You can call our on-call hours or go
Okay.
directly to the emergency room. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, it's so nice to meet you, Melanie. Let's get you set up for next week.
Okay, great. Thank you. It's really good.
That was awful.
Not what?
That was awful. The whole
No.
time I'm the student, I'm thinking in the back of my head about this other assignment for Psycho Farm that I need to get done. And I'm on like bunny trail everywhere. And I'm like, I could go in 10 directions today. Where am I going to go with you?
No, I thought you did great
Thank you.
because you kind of balanced out and you did kind of keep me on my toes because I was like, okay, now I got to make up a story for this person, and I'm looking down at my paper going, okay, she's 28, so
You
let's
did
give her
great.
kids.
I love
And
that you jumped and had such good responses. They were perfect.
you're so
You really could be that 28-year-old.
I wasn't that together when I was 28.
Me neither.
Okay, well, um, your turn. You're a hard act to follow,
Oh,
but
stop.
let's.
Not at all. I always think you do a wonderful job.
Oh, you're very sweet.
All right, let's get
Okay, so let's have you be the patient. Let me look real quick. Okay. Well, hi, Darlene. Thank you for coming in today. What brought you in?
well. I've just been having a lot of problems, very anxious, and I've been depressed, finding myself just crying at different times, feeling very overwhelmed. I'm so anxious I can't sleep at night, or if I do get to sleep, I'm waking up like an hour or two later. uh, if I go to like do stuff, I get really overwhelmed and it's hard for me to focus on one thing because I'm constantly thinking of everything else that I have to do. So the sleeping, because I'm not sleeping good, I'm just getting grouchy and I'm barking at everybody in my family. And it's just the kids are unhappy, I'm unhappy. Um, my husband's unhappy, everybody's just miserable, and everybody doesn't want to be around me. And so I feel like I'm just a big failure, and I just can't be a failure. Everything in my life has to be a success, and that's really bothering me. I feel like I'm failing at the most important thing I need to do with my life.
So, how long has this been going on?
Well, it's probably been since I started college. I went back to school a couple months ago. I really wanted to get my certification in psychiatric mental health nurse
Ah,
practitioner. So I'm already a family nurse practitioner, and I needed, partly for my job, I needed to have the certification, and also because I wanted to be dual licensed, and this is what I like to do. But it's just overwhelming. It's completely overwhelming. I had no idea that the coursework would be every day, hours long. You come home after working all day and seeing patients, and then it's the kids want dinner and the kids this and that, and they want to tell you about their day. And all I want to do is just jump up and do what I have to do. And that's very hard. And then I start to feel like I'm not giving any one thing any good attention, or that the kids are being too loud, or the kids are bothering me. And so then I get really irritable and I get snappy. And then my husband doesn't help with anything. He just comes home and plays on his phone or watches TV. And I'm like, hey, can you get the kids? Hey, can you, give them a bath? Can you make dinner? And he doesn't. doesn't do any of that. So I just feel like I'm constantly multitasking and I never relax. And now I'm shorting my sleep. I'm getting like 3 4 hours of broken sleep a night to get up and do homework or to do charting for work or whatever I need to do. And I'm having panic attacks and shortness of breath, and I'm crying, and it's just awful. And I've never been this way before. I've never had depression. I've never had anxiety. And I feel like my heart's in my throat, and I'm just so jumpy, and it's awful.
You have a lot on your plate. That's an awful lot. Now, you mentioned that this is secondary, that you're already a nurse practitioner. So you've been through a lot of school, a lot of education. You're very accomplished, plus working, plus raising a family. When you were in school before to become a nurse practitioner, did you have any of these problems?
I did. I did, but not to this degree, because in school I was just a nurse back then, so I was able to work only a couple days a week, long shift, and then I was able to have the other days when my kids were in school, and I could sit and use that time for myself for my homework. So it wasn't nearly as stressful. Now I'm working 5 days a week in an office, same hours of the kids. And so then I come home and there's no me time. There's no time without them. And that makes it really hard. And two, my my mom's from Thailand, so we're Asian culture. There's this expectation that everything has to be perfect and everything has to be done. And there's no complaining. You do whatever it is, whatever it takes to get the job done.
Oh my goodness. That's a lot of stress on you. That's a lot of stress. So there's a whole lot going on. And there's a lot of ways that we can approach this. We can get into how this is all built up. You mentioned your mother and your heritage and not complaining and getting things done. You mentioned right now all the stress you have on there. So we can do a couple of things. We can kind of look back and see how growing up like you did has affected that. And that may be the roots of some of this anxiety, and it sounds like depression. And we could also kind of do a more kind of solution focus, like where are you now? What do you need to do? So that's a lot, and I don't want you to feel overwhelmed, because we're going to take it piece by piece. Okay? You know that old thing, how do you eat an elephant? Do you know that one?
No.
One bite at a time. You see an elephant and it's huge. How can I eat this one bite at a time? We're going to do one bite at a time. So let's kind of, we can talk about the past, we can talk about what's going on now, but let's kind of look almost in the future. If you woke up tomorrow and everything was perfect, you had enough time, the kids were doing great, you did everything great, what would that look like?
Well, wake up in the morning and the kids would be ready to go on time. I would have plenty of time to get to work and drive and feel I've still made it there early, even if traffic is bad, and instead of rushing every morning like I am and my children are melting down in the morning. I would get to work and be successful in seeing the patients and not having to bring the charting home. Coming home then would be spending time with the children and my husband all together. My husband and I used to love to cook dinner together. He would always help. Now he kind of isolates because I'm grouchy. So I miss that piece, and then sitting down and having dinner and getting to really just give that present moment, that active listening where you're just really in the moment with the kids. And instead of just feeling in the back of my mind, like, oh, I just need to hurry up and eat. I just need to get to this. I just need to get to that. Can't you just go to bed? Can't you just leave my husband, leave me alone? I don't care about your day. So, it's all about me. It's my time. And then being able to, carve out that time every evening where the kids are in bed and still early enough that I'm able to be successful. And I think part of it too is, being older and going back to school, it's hard to understand all the little pieces where everything is. And so it's hard to stay organized. Like I'm the kind of person that still likes books and paper, and I like to write in calendars, and I still like to organize and highlight.
Okay.
And when it's all on the computer, it's overwhelming. And even something like I have a book that I got online because it was expensive and it was really affordable to rent it online. I can't read it. It bothers me so much. It's just overwhelming scrolling up and down for one page. I just hate it. And so that even alone frustrates me. It's like all these other people in the world are going to school and having ebooks. Like, why is it my problem? And even in my FMP program, I have to be honest, I never read them. I would pull Cliff Notes, or I would print the
Mhm.
keynotes and I would read them, and I would do other resources, or I'd watch videos because I hated the online books. So, it's just overwhelming. And then it goes back to, well, you're never going to get this right. You're never going to graduate. And I was in a program before, and I had to withdraw from that program because my work had put so many hours on me, because we'd had so many providers leave, that I was failing one of the courses, and the teacher was not flexible, which also really upset me because it's supposed to be a flexible work with you program.
Yeah.
The due dates for things were during the week. So large assignments were due like Tuesdays and Wednesdays, which is not feasible, so it was very difficult to do that. And a lot of rigorous stuff for the program. And so I felt very overwhelmed, much like I do now. And then it instantly just beats me down. And I just feel like, why am I doing this? Like, this is just dumb. I'm never gonna do this. I'm failing already. I'm missing assignments already. It's week 3 and I'm already missing stuff. So, especially due to the hurricane.
That's another thing that happened. That's another, life happens, right?
Yeah, but life can only happen so much. There's
Yeah.
still these due dates and things that are
Yeah.
required, and so I just feel super overwhelmed trying to smash everything, trying to get caught up, trying to learn the platform. And then it's just the family, and then it rolls into everything. It rolls into my parents being strict and my never good enough, and it rolls into having 6 children.
6?
Yes, I have 2 left in the house, but
Wow.
4 are grown. But it's just I just feel like a big failure. I'm just like, everything I do, I can't do good enough. And so I just, and then I get frustrated, like, why did you have kids? Because if you didn't have kids, you'd have this cute little apartment and plenty of money, and you wouldn't need to go back to school. And, and it just goes all the way into every single failure I've ever had in life.
It's poor planning on your parents' part, because if they had planned better, you could have been an heiress and not had to worry about all this stuff, right?
This is true.
Yeah.
Or my husband could have.
Well, and I mean, there's a lot of things that would be nice if it happened. It'd be nice if we had a 30-hour day. That's not going to happen. But, you're calling yourself a failure, and I'm sitting here thinking, you're a very accomplished failure. I mean, you've raised 6 kids, 4 of them are gone. 4 of them are out of the house. That's a big accomplishment. 4 are out of the house, and only 2 left. And nowadays, that's a huge accomplishment because they either come back or they never leave.
That's
So
true too.
your job as a parent to prepare your kids to be independent of you, you've done it. That's great. You've already completed a very difficult program. I mean, to become an FMP, you've gone through nursing school, you got your bachelor's, you got your FMP. That's a whole lot. You probably started out when there was the card catalog and you had to go to the library.
Yes.
hmm And now you're adapting to a new style. You have a lot of skills. You have the therapy skills, the focusing on your patient, the mindfulness. That's the big thing now, right?
Mhm.
So these things you're telling me, oh, I wish I could do this. You have those skills, but maybe you're kind of being drugged down because you're telling yourself, well, I should be doing this. I should be doing that. Do you ever do that? I should do this. I should
Oh,
do that.
all the time. And even when I do something, then I think in the back of my mind, it's not good enough. Even just sitting down to do a simple task, I will read too much into it. And it's never good enough. Never, ever, ever, ever.
Well, there is the saying, don't should all over yourself. You know that one?
Yeah.
And it's hard sometimes to realize that you can be good enough. You don't have to be perfect. You can be good enough. And you may hear that voice of your mother behind in your head, but hopefully you're also hearing your voice saying back, look what all I've done. So when you were talking about how you would like things to be, you had this wonderful presentation of a calm environment where everything got done and people were happy, right?
Absolutely.
So we're going to eat the elephant a bite at a time. What do you think is one thing you could do to move toward that?
Hmm. Maybe planning out my day a little more rigorous, organizing my time a little better. So I know for the week what I've really got to do instead of last minute, I'm like, okay, jumping in. What am I going to do? I got 5 minutes.
Yeah. Well, and in my experience, when you have a program, now is your program that you go to it or is it online?
It's online.
Good, because that gives you flexibility. Now there might not be a whole lot of flexibility. You mentioned an instructor who said this is due when it's due, you know, but time management, and I have the feeling you have these skills. You don't get to be as accomplished as you are without time management, and also without a little OCD. You have a little OCD?
True. This is true. Yes. A lot.
Make it work for you. So, one thing you might want to try is getting yourself, do you have a planner?
I do.
Okay, because you said you like that stuff.
Yeah, I like to
That's a
write in it.
plus.
Yeah.
That's a plus. So maybe a nice planner with very fancy pens. Splurge a little on yourself, a fancy pen, and write down for the week. Because remember, we're going to do a bite at a time. We're not going to do the whole semester. That's a lot. Maybe if you write down for the week, what do I need to do? And one fancy pen color for school, and one fancy pen color for the kids, and one fancy pen color for the house, one for your husband. And then you need a fancy pen color for yourself. Okay?
I
Because
really think about that.
therapists are horrible patients. They're just horrible. But think about it. Most of your time is spent doing for others, right?
Very true.
You do for your family, you do for your husband, you do for schoolwork, you do for your patients. So if you imagine you have this water bottle, right? Pour a little out for that person, pour a little out for that person, a little out for that person. What happens?
There's nothing left.
Yeah. So you got to fill your water bottle. But in my experience, nobody's going to fill it for you. So what would happen if you were driving home and you stopped a block away from home and you parked your car and you just sat for 10 minutes?
I'd be worried about all the things that I need to do when I got home.
What can you do in 10 minutes that is going to be life-saving?
Well,
One of the kids, are they on oxygen that has to be changed immediately?
no.
What if you said, What's something that you like to do that fills your bottle of water, or this is tea, fills your bottle of tea? What is something that restores you?
Mhm. Uh, I like to read. I like to listen to self-help books on Audible.
Ah, so what if you drive home, you say, I'm going to drive. How long does it take you to get home?
About a half an hour.
Half an hour. What if you say, for half an hour, I'm going to listen to my book on Audible. I'm not going to think about my patients. Their time is up. They'll be back next week. What if you say, I'm not going to think about what's going on at home because I'm not home yet. I don't even know what's going on there. It could be that the kids have surprised me and made a delicious dinner. You never know. What if you said, I'm just going to listen to this book on Audible as I drive home for half an hour? And if we've got 5 minutes left in the chapter, by the time I get home, I'll just sit in my car for 10 minutes and listen to that chapter. Will anything horrible happen? Will you walk in and the kids will be bleeding from the ears?
No.
Yeah, hopefully not.
Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully not. So there are a lot of things, and you know them, you're just not doing them, right? Which is physician heal thyself.
Mm-hmm.
So, some things you can always talk about delegating. Are the kids old enough to help with dinner or housework? Do they?
They are. No, not really.
What's preventing that?
Uh, I would say just because, like, my culture, I mean, it would typically the mother does everything. And, I try to hold the kids accountable, but my husband isn't around much. He works a lot. He's actually gone for weeks at a time. And so there's no discipline. If mom's so busy, I'm too busy doing schoolwork or cleaning or something that I can't micromanage them. And so that's their opportunity to just sneak off and do whatever they want. So there's no.
You have older kids who are out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
Their houses you visited?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do they look okay? Are their science projects growing?
They're
Has the
okay.
county come in?
They're okay. No, that county hasn't come in.
So they figured it out.
Mm-hmm.
So part of your job as a parent is to help them figure out how to be independent. And the first time they do it, they're not going to do it right. They're not going to do it like you did it, because if you're honest, the first time you cleaned your house, was it as good as it looks now?
No, not at all.
Yeah. So what if you say you're old enough, you're in charge of the living room? When I come home, the house needs to be clean. Not perfect, but no science projects, no dust bunnies. Could you live with that?
Yeah, I could live with that.
So this is, there's only so much. We've all only got 24 hours. So if you put a new activity on and you put a big activity with going to school, something has to come off. Okay? So some of this stuff on your plate has to go somewhere else. So how about, I'm going to give you homework. Can you deal with homework?
I don't know.
It's not going to be horrible. You're going to like it.
Okay.
Get you your organizer for this week. Get your fancy pens. What has to be done? If you have some time, you have all this stuff that needs to be done. What are things you can let go of? Either someone else can do it, or it doesn't have to be done. Does the living room have to be vacuumed every day? Probably. They have these wonderful things where you can stop and you can buy dinner and someone else has prepared it. They even have that it can come to your house.
That's true.
Is that so bad if one day a week you say, listen, mom's got a lot to do, we're having pizza?
That's true. That's a good idea.
So there's some change. One more thing to talk about. Another thing quickest, most accurate way to make a change is medication. You mentioned some depression, some anxiety. Have you ever taken medication for this?
I have. I actually started some Wellbutrin a couple weeks ago because the focus was so bad. That focus was all over the place, and it was affecting the way I've been, thinking and trying to organize. But the problem is then it increases the anxiety. So
The
I have,
Wellbutrin has increased the anxiety?
yeah,
So it's not doing what we want it to do, so maybe we need to think of something else.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we can talk about something else. Now, let's do a little check-in. You mentioned some depression. Any thoughts of hurting yourself, hurting anyone else?
Oh no, not at all.
Okay. If you ever do get that, you can call us. You have our number. You can go to the emergency room. So, what do you think of a plan that we could meet once a week, kind of work on some of these things, work on some problem solving, how to kind of make your day more manageable, maybe even kind of go back and find the roots of these things. But until then, find a medication that can help with this anxiety, get you some more sleep.
That sounds great.
Okay, so you think you can do your homework this week?
I do.
Okay, so can we meet next week?
Absolutely. I really like talking with you. This has been great, Melanie. Thank you so much.
I like talking to you. Thank you. End scene.
You did great. I love the whole elephant thing. That's wonderful.
The favorite thing anyone said was that don't shit all over yourself. So I need to crochet that, or needlepoint it.
That. Yeah, I daily basis shit all over myself. So
yeah, I think a lot of it too is that concept of enough. It's good enough.
It's never good enough. Yeah, and that comes from cultural, So, this is my 7th degree. And I never went to high school because I was a teen mom and a wife. So
were you really?
Yeah. So it's my baby right here.
Hi.
Say hi to Miss Melanie.
Hi.
What's your name?
Reed.
Reed. Your mom is incredible.
I'm not so bad, huh? Give me a few more minutes, okay?
Mom, remember that dollar you said this to
Give me a few more minutes, okay?
No, the dollar.
I love Reed.
Just a minute, okay? He loves this Roblox game. He barters. This is what they do. So I'm distracted. They're like, hey, remember when you told me you paid me allowance? So let me $5 more, $10 more.
He said, I'll say it in front of a witness.
Yes, absolutely.
Mom,
So, but
can you at least tell me what the numbers at the end were?
here, let me see it. So, anyways, the cultural thing, my parents, it was always never good enough. My parents, both of them being from other countries, they were always so destined to, but they were awful parents. They weren't, well-to-do. They weren't successful. They had their own many problems.
They raised you.
But they were always just like, oh, you're never going to amount to nothing. And so it was always that I'll show you. But it never stops. It never is. It's always like, okay, well, you got here. What's next? Let's do this. Oh, when you're done with this, you want to go for your DMP? You want to, maybe go to medical school? You want to have another kid? This is, this is my life. So I'm hoping through this course of these classes that I'm getting a lot more insight. So.
Yeah. Well, let you get back to Reed.
Okay.
I'll turn this in. Have a really good week. And
you too.
Seriously, this is what I used to always tell the mothers of the patients I saw. My mother would hate this, but I would tell this story. My mom had 5 kids in 6 years. And when she got home from work, because she worked full time, since my brother was in kindergarten, she would have her purse on her shoulder. And the rule was she's not really home unless she takes the purse off her shoulder. So we would wait. And sometimes she would walk around for an hour with that purse on her shoulder. Because she needed it.
That's
she needed
smart.
that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I do tell
Please tell me
the
number
the
today.
parents of my kids, park a block away and take 15 minutes to yourself. Nothing terrible happens in 15 minutes. And if
That's
it
true.
did, they'll call you and you're right there.
That's true.
Okay.
Thank
Have a
you.
good weekend. I'll turn this in, okay?
Okay, I'll see you next
Okay.
week. Thank
Thank
you. Good
you.
night, Melly. Bye.
Good night. Bye-bye.